right from the jump. Like your job ad says more about who you are than possibly, your new hire training. And so getting them animated and excited and in the door, I think can make a really big difference. And so what we'll start to see, I believe, is that our top recruiters, the ones that are really performing at a high level, will start to look more like growth leaders. They're
Yeah.
going to have to focus on conversion and retention and those things that really matter. And it's not so much, again, about this gatekeeping.
Heidi, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So,
Good to see you.
before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit more about yourself personally and then your journey to where we are today.
Sure. So my background's in marketing. That was really my entry point into talent. And it turns out that hiring and talent, have more in common than people realize. So started as a content writer in HR tech, moved through marketing, became sales leader, and then eventually became a CRO. And I was an early member at Applicant Pro. And so it was really fun to kind of grow up within the business and then eventually became CEO, served in that role for 3 years, and then led the team over into an integration with our isolved company. So now I'm the president of talent acquisition solutions at isolved. And really, I have a passion overall for hiring and that marketing mindset. Personally, I live in Utah. I have 4 kids. I'm a wife. I love being outdoors. Utah's a great place for it. We have tons of incredible things to do any time of year. So right now we're in our hiking era. In a couple months here, we'll be in our, I don't know, skiing era. It's just a beautiful place to be.
Just keep going and make me more jealous. Why don't you?
I know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
There's me
As you
stuck
sit
in the
behind that
city in
microphone,
London and you're hiking and skiing. I'm not jealous at all.
you got it. Come see me.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I'm going to be calling you, being like, "How do you manage 4 kids?" That's going to be my first. That's going to be my first question because I can deal with. I'm barely dealing with one. So I mean,
Yes.
four. You're going to be my go-to. My mum raised 4 kids on her own. So I was like,
Wow.
now as an adult, I appreciate it. as,
Yeah,
as
you
a
definitely
child,
do.
you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
you don't even think about it, right? But as an adult, you're like, yeah, this is pretty tough.
This is pretty tough. Yeah, especially I have teenagers now, and so it's funny to almost stare back at like all the qualities that kind of make you crazy about yourself are reflected back in your children. So it's extra exciting.
It's a different set of problems now. No
Yeah.
challenges. I love your background. I think it's so complimentary, right? Like I think now, thinking if you said you started in marketing, right? And I think now more than ever, that's playing such a critical role
Right.
in this position. And there's companies and even HR functions. I was just interviewing a CHRO today, and I was like, "What's some of the new hires you're making in your own team?" And he's like, "We're building out a
Hmm.
marketing team within our HR function."
Right.
All right, because they need content, they need an online presence, they need to reach people where they're at, right, which is social media.
Hmm.
And that's something we just didn't think about, like, and I think even during like the pandemic, communication became so critical, and HR kind of rose in that
Hmm.
space really to
Yeah.
be the voice of the organization. So how has that helped you in your current roles that you're in now?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that, as you talk about, really, we're starting to almost have to create marketing experiences within recruiting, right?
Yes.
And so this is a stat that I read a while back. 49% of job seekers have turned down an offer due to a poor candidate experience. And so instead of our recruiters kind of being gatekeepers almost and keeping out the bad, we're almost having to create an experience from a candidate perspective, right? We're almost a candidate experience designer as you start to allow for AI to deploy some of those repetitive, grunt work type of things.
Yeah.
We really start to be able to have more opportunity within influence and messaging. This candidate experience is truly crafted to be able to help the candidates to want to come work there because this truly is their launching point right from the jump. Like your job ad says more about who you are than possibly, your new hire training. And so getting them animated and excited and in the door, I think can make a really big difference. And so what we'll start to see is, I believe, is that our top recruiters, the ones that are really performing at a high level, will start to look more like growth leaders. They're
Yeah.
going to have to focus on conversion and retention and those things that really matter. And it's not so much, again, about this gatekeeping.
Yeah. And I think with there's been a lot of concerns in the recruitment space about AI and that replacing recruiters. But to your point, I think AI now frees them up to do that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I really don't, we'll look back on all of these conversations in 5 years and we'll be like, remember how we thought, this wasn't going to be a thing. But I really don't believe that it's going to replace our recruiters. I believe that it's really going to free them up to focus on the people. And we talked about this just in another conversation we had about everyone's desire. I think we'll feel more of a desire of people to connect more realistically, more inhuman. Though a lot of that we're going to seek for that authenticity because we're living in an AI world. You
Yeah.
can you can scroll LinkedIn, you're like AI. Oh, this one feels authentic, whether it's using AI or not. It's different. But I think we're going to crave that more, and I think that we'll see that in our hiring experiences as well.
Yeah. I feel like we're going full 360 in some ways, where we started with more of a human focus earlier in my career. We had this huge wave of technology, so we went that direction.
Yeah.
And now people are craving, again, the human experience and connection.
Uh-huh.
And we're back here again.
Yeah.
It seems like a cycle. Uh,
Yeah, I think COVID did that to us too. You think about COVID, we were all, in some ways, I was excited to be back working from home fully and having more time at home and with my family. And then as soon as the world opened back up, there was all this pent-up demand, right? We all wanted to go to the movies. We all wanted to go to dinner. We all wanted to be out with our friends. And so we saw that in the hiring craze as well. I mean, just as soon as things opened up in 2021, 22, like we just had this boom and all these people needing to hire. And so I feel that in a very, very cyclical way of people wanting that more human, authentic touch. And so as we can create those experiences in a hiring environment, we're going to win out. Our people are going to connect with us more.
yeah. Hiring itself has gone through so many massive shifts over the last couple of years. AI is just a new one
Mhm.
coming in. What stands out to you in terms of how companies are approaching talent today that's different?
Yeah. A couple come to mind. The first one is I really have seen in the past year in particular, maybe two, that we have a shift from this need for sourcing to a need for screening, right? Before we were in a scarcity mindset, we were really trying to draw out more candidate flow. And I think in some ways it became a vanity metric, almost like a warm blanket we'd put on at night and just be like, hey, look at all my candidates. This is so great. However, now we're seeing an overabundance of candidates and the quality is off as well. And so we have this flood of candidates. We have layoffs announced every day. We have easier to apply functionality. And so, it's not uncommon for someone to sit down in an hour and apply to 100 jobs and then not have any idea what they applied for or what it is that they were working on. And so, that flood of candidates is really forcing us to start to look to now what, right? How do we handle hiring from this abundant standpoint? And screening is going to become the new bottleneck, but also the most critical pieces of our tech stack or most critical pieces of our hiring process. I think is gonna be this screening component. You're gonna, with some of the things we deploy, we encourage a video interview because you can watch it and within seconds know this is not a right fit, rather than scheduling the call and getting them on the call and feeling like you need to spend 30 minutes. You're able to more quickly move through some of those things. I think your assessments, your skills testing, again, will become one of those things that becomes really important in the screening process. So that's the first one, Chris. I think another one that's interesting to think about is we used to have the kind of this like post and pray mentality. We would write our ad, we would post it, and then we'd all pray that the right candidates would come through. And I think again, similar to what we were talking about with the growth leadership mindset, we're starting to see us need to become more performance based, almost like performance marketers
Yeah.
in how we're recruiting, right? Our job boards are now run more like PPC. You're paying for candidate flow, you're paying for visibility, you're paying for this quick match on these platforms. And so your ads have to convert. They just have to convert, and they have to convert the right people. And not in a way of gatekeeping. Again, we're not trying to keep them out. We want to cast a wide net. But I think that here you're going to see more story like opportunities. You're going to see, making sure that the things that matter most are at the top of the ad. All of those things are going to help us to convert, similar to marketers. And so I think that we'll move more from this post and pray mentality over into that performance marketing. And then we're seeing that shift from resumes. Resumes used to be the only thing, you'd walk in with your resume and hand them to the hiring manager. I think we're going to see more soft skills coming into play. People are going to be looking more for that hire for potential, because AI can be the AI is helpful for candidates just like it's helpful for us on the recruiting front. And so all of a sudden, all of our matching is going to become, I don't know, everyone's going to figure out how to match their resumes over. And so resumes, I think, are just going to become less and less important. And people are going to actually start to look more for the skills that are important and matter to them in order to be able to grow their businesses. So those are just a few that have really, I've seen like paying around or watched as we've hired internally as well. Some of those themes are coming out in that shift.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a whole show on every one of those topics.
Right, right.
Where do I even start? I mean, I'll start with the last one because it's fresh in my head. Like, it almost seems crazy that the CV is still around, right?
No,
Like the idea that the words that you write on the paper is a reflection of your capability and what you can apply, because then it becomes who can write the best CV.
exactly.
Right. Whereas like
Yeah.
I'm not good at that. I struggled with reading and writing my whole career, but I'm an expert on execution in all of the areas and skills that I have. But you ask me to write a good CV, I'm probably not going to get a call.
Yeah.
Every job I've ever got is actually been where I've been got into my first role, then I've been headhunted based on my skills, not based on my CV.
Yes.
To your point.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is interesting how much weight we put on that
Yeah.
CV and that resume in our lives. I think it's just something that we've always known. And so we tend to like anchor onto these things of, well, what do you mean you don't have a resume? And I have a daughter we call her an emerging adult. She's 18. She's just going out into the workforce, and she didn't have a resume, and every job she applied for required it. So of course we sat down and wrote one, and she's like, this is crazy, I don't have any experience, right? And so it became this big barrier for her being able to actually
Yeah.
apply for. And so anyways, she's got a couple jobs now. She's got one she starts this week, and I think it will really help in being
Congrats.
able to give
Yeah.
her more of those skills to be able to grow. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think now we have the data technology, and most companies are moving towards a skills-based organization, skills-based approach. That will
Hmm.
now become I think we'll move more and more towards
Yeah.
that as we start to even remove hierarchy and functions and even job titles. I feel like in the future, where we
Mm.
focus on skills, and this is the task and project. What are the skills that we need to bring together to achieve that,
Mhm.
as opposed to a CV, which is very linear. By design, a CV puts you in a box,
It does.
right?
Yeah.
So you have so many skills that are complementary across, could be applied across any part of the business, but the CV is literally putting you in a box.
Yeah.
And if you have a CV that's broad and in different areas, then you're too broad and you don't fit any box. And then there's kind of an interesting one. So I'm really excited to see how companies and solution providers in the space start to reimagine this to be a skills-based approach. Because I think,
Yes.
especially with the age of AI and technology, those hard skills are going to become easier and more accessible.
Hmm.
Whereas the power skills, I don't like to say soft skills, but the power skills are
Yes.
going to
I
be
like it.
even more important. Things like critical thinking,
Hmm.
which we also spoke about a little bit in our last conversation as well. So it's going to be interesting, and
It will be.
how this evolves, and even platforms like LinkedIn, which are
Yeah.
very heavy on click here,
Titles and yeah.
titles and CVs and stuff like that. Back to your first point, though, we've got this flood of we've made it so easy to apply
Hmm.
that people are applying not just multiple jobs, but they're also applying for multiple jobs in the same company.
Yes.
Like up to, I saw, I mean, one of the CHROs was, they had someone recently that applied for 30 jobs in the same company, right?
Wild.
As well.
Yeah.
How are you seeing companies overcome that challenge, or how are you approaching that and figuring out, okay, who is the right person, to
Hmm.
do that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, we had this experience for ourselves as well. We posted a developer job, and typically we'd get, 20-ish qualified candidates in a week. And we felt pretty good about those numbers. If you look at them statistically, that was really great from a conversion perspective. Just our most recent one we posted, we had 125 applicants overnight, and most of them are qualified, right? Things are wildly different. And so I think it's tricky trying to discover who is that right fit and who isn't. And so some of those things we're deploying, our AI screening tools have been really helpful for us to be able to see first who is the best fit. And then as we click in, it gives you more of an opportunity to view these things are working, and these things are maybe like a strong point for them. Maybe these things are things that they need to work on. So you know a little more of what you're getting into. I love a hiring assessment. We use one with a benchmark. And so it allows for us to take a look at, especially if we have someone in the company that we love, that we'd love to clone. I'd take 10 of Sarah, right? Then I want to put Sarah as a benchmark so that I can put everyone up against her to be able to see, oh, look,
Oh,
Chris is a
nice.
75% fit of Sarah. Let's take a look at what this looks like. I think this is going to force us also, as we've talked a little bit about, maybe a traditional route isn't the one that's going to get us the proper candidates that we're looking for. And so I think it's going to push us a little bit more to look at those things. I like to use the example of like a barista at Starbucks. They're used to all of these different like types of drinks and hidden drinks and TikTok drinks or whatever, and they're making individual drinks for all these
I love
people.
it.
I want that person talking to my customers because they're used to, you know, navigating different changes and a lot of those different things. I want them if I'm a credit union, I want them as a teller at talking to my customers because I know that they're going to help them navigate their individual situation in a way. So starting to see if we can map some of those, I think that the assessment can be really helpful with that. And I think really just changing our mindset around what it is that we're looking for
Yeah. Did I
and
tell did I tell
see if we
you
can look at.
my background, how I got my first job? Have I ever said
I
that?
don't think so.
And yeah,
Mm-mm.
so very quickly, because the audience probably heard it about a million times, 1,000 episodes. I think you'd appreciate it, and it's become 20 years later. It now is the norm. So I got my job at 17 by just literally walking up to some people in a pool bar that looked like they had a really fancy suit on, saying, "I need a job." Like that's
Mm.
literally. And I was like 17, and I was like, they're like, "You have no idea what we do," and I was like, "Yeah, but I need a job, and you guys look like you make great money," which is my young, naive teenage self. So long story short, I got invited to an interview. I just had a web link, so I had no idea apart from what this company did. I didn't even know what the role was. And I go there, and no one had informed the hiring manager or the HR team of why I was there. So
Mm.
no context. And they said, you need 2 years sales experience and a degree for this job. And I was like,
Mm.
well, I obviously don't have 2 years
Oh,
sales experience, and I haven't been to university. And I went through the whole screening process, and I did like an assessment and all that stuff. And then hours later, they were like, yeah, we can't give you the job. You don't meet these criterias. And I was like, before I leave, can you explain to me the correlation between like a really successful salesperson and a degree?
mm.
And they kind of just looked at each other and had no answer whatsoever. So I was like, so you don't need a degree to be good at sales? They're like, oh no, but and I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
last, and they're like, Chris, it's not going to work out. You got to leave. And I was like, oh, one more question. They're like, oh my God, this kid won't leave. I was like, you've mentioned multiple times during this conversation, you have a world-class sales academy. So why do I need 2 years sales experience?
Mm.
Right. And again, they just was like, oh, like no answer whatsoever. So I was like, if you don't need a degree and you've got this incredible academy,
Yes.
and I have the willingness to learn and grow, then why
Hmm.
can't I work here?
Right.
And long story short, they said no again. I then offered to work for free for the summer, and
Oh, did you?
I was there for 10 years, and I became global VP of sales and sold the company to Gartner, right? And like the day that I left the business 10 years later when we sold, they still hadn't changed that.
Really?
No, it's just crazy, right? And to think where we are now in our conversation, that's going to become the normal, right? Like you shouldn't, if you're only
Right.
hiring when someone's got a degree or the perfect
Hmm.
experience, and you're not looking at it through the lens of skills, and
Right.
do they have the growth mindset, right? And the hunger to develop, then you're missing out on an entire pool of talent.
Yes.
So are you seeing companies really starting to make the shift?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think a lot of it is mindset, Chris. I think it's just what we've always known, right? And I think that there needs to be more people asking the same question that you were asking. Why do you need a degree? And where we see a lot of our startups don't require it, right? Because they are more fluid, right? They're more used to challenging the norm. And so I think some of our larger corporations are really going to struggle. And so that's one of those things when we look at our job description or our job ad, we really need to be asking on those, are these actual requirements? Is this going to make somebody the best fit? And if we look at those people that we would love to clone, where did they come from? What is their background and experience? I had a manager who was came to me with a job description, and I was like, this is beautifully written. Would you have qualified for this job? And she said
I love that.
she
Yeah,
wouldn't
it's
have
so
qualified for
true.
that job. Yeah, so it's tricky. I think we just need to change our mindset around it. That's truly, I think, where it starts.
The other thing is as well is people, if you do that, people opt themselves out and they don't
Hmm.
even apply, right? Because
Yep.
you think by putting all of that in there is going to be of the benefit, but actually you kind of scare away sometimes talent because it's like all of these requirements, and if people see maybe one or two that they don't have or they don't feel like they're capable of, they're like, I'm not even going to apply. So you're also doing yourself a disservice by
Yeah,
doing that.
especially females.
Oh yeah, I've
That's
seen the
that's
data.
the
Yeah,
statistic.
yeah,
Yeah, especially females. And I think we can try to change the female mindset around it and say you're a good qualified candidate, but I think that we need to just exclude those things that don't actually matter for the job. Even when we put the nice to haves in there, people view them as true requirements.
yeah. You can put it nice to have, but they don't read it that way, as
No,
well.
no, they don't.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask is, how can CHROs better support their TA teams?
Yeah, I think this is a really important one. I think that we've seen a shift in a lot of our TA teams. They're leaner than they've ever been. They have more requirements for data that they are providing to CHROs and other leadership. And so I think what they're feeling is a sense of overwhelm, right? And so I think it's overwhelmed by the process, overwhelmed by the requirements. And so I'm not saying to relax those requirements because we need to be moving faster and doing more and being more in alignment with strategic initiatives. But I think that a lot of what the burnout is often tied to, you know, manual processes or, you know, the manager, hiring managers are a major problem in in our TA world because we're expected to quickly get the job ad live yesterday, get it out there, start to get candidates back. We put them in front of hiring managers and they don't move forward, right? And I get it, people are busy, but that's statistically where a lot of our time to fill lags sit with the hiring manager. So if CHROs can help influence that in any way to help our hiring managers do their part, it's just going to make things so much easier. It's almost like, have you ever looked for a flight, Chris, and you're like, okay, I think I might have found the right flight. Let me check with, the team or check with my family, or check with my spouse. And then you come back 2 days later, you're starting over, right?
And the
And I
flight's
feel
more
like
expensive.
more expensive and the seats are worse.
Yeah,
You're now in
yeah,
the
yeah,
middle of
yeah.
the plane in the back or middle seat in the back of the plane, right?
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing I feel like with recruiters. They're especially because a lot of our recruiters are hiring for multiple they have multiple jobs that they're hiring for. And so if the hiring manager takes a long time, they're essentially starting over every time they have to look at it. And so the more we can help them with that, I think it will make a big difference. And then really, I think evaluating the tech stack around AI. I think that there's a lot of initiatives coming down for our TA professionals where it's like, use this, and it's not things that will actually help them. We started with a job ad writing tool because a lot of our TA professionals aren't writers, right? They're not marketers. They don't know how to put this out there. And so a tool that could make it so that instead of them going and copying and pasting a competitors, they could actually write it right there. And in something that took, traditionally 30 to 60 minutes is taking 5 to 10 now. Those types of things are the things that we should look for from a CHRO perspective to really try to drive down and help them where they want to be helped. I read a story just the other day about how a lot of AI is taking away the things that we love to do, especially the creative side. We don't want the AI to create necessarily our decks for us, our PowerPoint decks, or our, some of those things from a marketing perspective. What we want them to do, what we want it to do is really help us with the mundane
Yeah.
tasks that we're digging through and consistently working on.
Yeah. It's like they are high value, but they are time intensive.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Modest definitely.
and I think people think job description as an example is very trivial, but when you think about
Hmm.
it, one, the time, but also the nuance of now the agent being able to understand the culture, the values, the tone of the organization, and having that consistent now, right?
Hmm.
So if you've got a huge organization and you're putting jobs out, a lot of times they kind of like don't look consistent because obviously
Hmm.
people are writing them, right? With AI now,
Sure.
you can create a level of consistency, so it has context, and
Hmm.
you're sharing the same brand and message, consistently across all your job ads. And I think that in itself is huge.
Yes.
It can say, hey, maybe have you thought about saying this a little bit differently because maybe there's some bias
Yes.
in there, or maybe you're using some words that are really, you know, focused on men, like words that
Yes. Like masculine tone
masculine.
or
Yeah,
feminine tone.
yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. So all of those
Yeah.
things that as humans we have our backpack of beliefs and our bias that we are unconscious of that will just
Sure.
naturally. I still read ones on LinkedIn where I'm like, oh my god, has no one read this? Like
Yes.
how did this go out? But
Yes.
so that also is part of it. I don't think people think they think, oh yeah, writing a job description, but it's way more than that.
It
Um,
is way more
yeah.
than that. Yeah. And I think that you're starting to see our job boards really reward for authenticity and
Yes.
also,
Yeah.
interactions with the candidates. So if the candidates click on it, it gives signal that it's relevant. If they stay on your ad for long enough, if they actually click to apply, all of those things show relevancy and the job boards are rewarding for it.
Yeah. In terms of moving forward, where do you see the biggest opportunities that aren't currently tapped into when you look at AI in hiring? Where do you think this is going to go? We're
Yeah.
starting with some low hanging stuff right now, but where do you think we're going to go with this in the future?
Yeah, so I think that has a really interesting way of kind of exposing the cracks, right? And I think what it's going to find in the hiring space in particular, and sadly, because this is my world, is that there's layers of legacy processes that are going to be put under pressure, right? A bad hiring process is going to become more exposed because it's going to be easier for us to move in a lot of different directions. And so, things that have been easily ignored, like our poor job ads or like bottlenecks in the process, or even like unclear screening processes or what happens after that. All of those things I think are just going to be put under pressure for us to really start to I don't know, the AI is just going to add that additional pressure. So I think what we'll need to be paying attention to here going forward is like where the friction is. So, is it hard for our candidates to move forward? Is it hard for our recruiters to really move people on? So start there with the AI. Start with where is that friction? What is it that we can remove? It's almost as though you have an assembly line that you're sending folks through and figuring out where that friction lies and really starting to unstick those things. I think if you can explain how hiring decisions are made or adding more context to those your actual hiring process, it's going to make it a lot easier for the AI to do its job, right? And so I think that the more that we start to expose the different areas where we're experiencing friction, that's where we're going to find our biggest gains overall in the AI world. And I think that a lot of it, we just need to stay focused through this process on the future of AI is not the people, right? We want the people aspect of it still to be there. We want to free up our people to do the people things. That's why when you talk to any HR person, why are you in this field? Or how did you get started in this field? They say, I wanted to work with people. I was motivated by people. Or sometimes they started out as like an admin and then eventually found themselves in this accidental role. But I think a lot of times those that actually choose HR, they're choosing it for the people, to be with the people and to amplify a human experience. And so let's let AI do those things, amplify that future experience. But I think it's a lot of it is we're just going to have to open up our minds and change our mindset around being able to change how we look at hiring, how our processes are built, some of the things we talked about with the resume, CV, all of those. I think it's just going to be how can we get better? What can we do? What do we need to do in order to treat this as a strategic initiative? And we do it in our technology stack. We should do it again in our hiring as well. It's really kind of open that up.
Yeah.
So that's really what I see happening in the world of AI. I think we're going to see that massive exposure to bad processes and things that have been excusable for a long
Yeah.
time.
I think I agree with everything you said. I think one of the things I'm noticing, if you had bad practices and processes, AI just amplifies that.
Oh, 100%.
So,
Yeah.
right. So it's like when you saw during the pandemic, if you had like a bad manager, and then they were managing remotely, it amplified how
Mhm.
bad a manager
Yes.
they were. And
Yes.
if he was a great manager, it also showed how great they were. It just
Yes.
amplified that as well. But I feel like this is an interesting kind of moment in time where we have to revisit every part of the candidate experience and a hiring experience, and just reassess every moment that matters from all
Hmm.
the way through. And
Yes.
I know many companies that are going through that process right now and revisiting their tech stack, their processes,
Yes.
like how they communicate, how do we create this, make it more hyper personalized. It's a really exciting time.
It is. And
Overwhelming.
overwhelming for sure. Yeah. I think that's it, Chris. I think we're going to see two camps. I think we're going to see people that work to automate pieces of their existing kind of legacy process. And then you're going to see another camp of people who want to actually build it from the ground up utilizing AI. And you're
Yeah.
going to see that there's going to be more of a divide. I think right now you're seeing them side by side, but you're going to start to see it divide more as people, those that built it from ground up, will be utilizing it fundamentally through that candidate process rather than, picking and choosing the things that they
Yeah.
want to automate.
Yeah. You can't just add AI to your current systems and processes. They weren't designed
Yeah.
that way.
Yes.
It's saying again, it's kind of a good analogy for remote work. People went remote and they tried
Yeah.
to do that with the same systems and processes and ways and work. It doesn't
Right.
work. You have to
Right.
start from companies that got that really early on, that started from scratch and was like, okay, how do we reimagine this from the ground
Yes.
up for this new world that we're living in, or in this case, this new technology? They're the companies that are winning,
They
right?
are.
And it's painful, and you have to
It
go
is
through it.
painful.
But
Yes.
but the alternative is more painful because you're going to lose candidates. You're going to have a terrible candidate experience.
A lot of our leaders believe that in the next 3 to 10 years, we'll see the impact of AI. And that's just wild. I mean, the things that we thought were never imaginable are now going to be projected to happen by December. Like things are rapidly speeding up. So this slowdown to speed up in when it comes to AI and recruiting, I think and AI in general, I think we just need to do that build from the ground up
Yeah,
and really reimagine it.
there's no better time to start than today.
Yes, yes.
If you think that there's no plan, just start. just get started, because
Just get
whatever
started.
you build now, in 3 months' time is going to change. So
Exactly. But you'll have that basis of understanding of like, okay, we tried this and this worked and this didn't, but that's it. Get started. Get like roll up your sleeves, get your hands in it. It's going to make a huge difference.
yeah, Heidi. Before I let you go, if people want to reach out and say hi to you, where's the best place for them to connect with you
Yeah,
personally?
probably LinkedIn. Yep. Find me at Heidi Barnett on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place. I'm very active there, posting, and then also I love the DMs. So if you want to reach out, I would love to connect and chat. I've had a couple people ask for help with jobs, and I'm happy to help with that side as well.
Yeah. And where can people check out isolved?
Oh, isolvedhcm.com. There's tons of information there. We've got webinars and all sorts of things. So, yep, that's the best place.
Amazing. Well, look, super fun chatting with you. We could have talked forever on this, and
Yes,
obviously a topic which, of course, is front of mind for everyone listening right now. And I appreciate you sharing some really good practical ways that are being used, but also your personal experience as well, living and breathing it every day, because
every
you're on
day.
both sides. So it's actually
Yes,
a very interesting perspective. But thanks for coming on the show, and I wish you all the best until
of
next week.
course. Yes, thank you so much, Chris. Have a great day.